Hi guys, this is Pierre, and first off, I want to apologize if I make you feel old by saying this, but 30 years ago, today, a great sci-fi movie was born, RoboCop. RoboCop to me is one of the all-time greatest sci-fi movies, action movies, basically movies period of all time. So what makes it so great? Well, I'll tell you. I'm gonna talk to you about the RoboCop movies that have come out from 1987 till the remake of 2014. Let's begin with the first movie, and first, the story. The story is about Alex Murphy, a cop that had just came in the city of Detroit. But the city of Detroit has a cancer, and that cancer is crime. And the company that owns the cops, OCP, wants to clean that up, mainly in old Detroit, so it can build a new city of the future called Delta City. But in the line of duty, Alex Murphy is shot to death, and he becomes the candidate for a new project from OCP known as RoboCop. But originally there was another project called ED-209, which was led by Vice President of OCP, Dick Jones, but that one was rejected because of an accident. So the RoboCop project from Bob Morton is actually accepted. But there's one thing, there's a man inside the machine, remember? He had a family, he had friends, including Ann Lewis, who was his partner. So yeah, this movie is mainly about the dilemma of how far can you go to protect the citizens? Do you have to take someone's humanity away? Do you take a robot? Do you have to do things that may dehumanize a person? It's kind of like Clockwork Orange in a way. Yes, I compared RoboCop to Clockwork Orange, and I'm happy about it. But this movie, what it is to me, it's a satire of action movies of the 80s. Because when you go in, you expect to see lots of blood, lots of action, and you got it. You got it. It's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's basically the 80s heaven or hell, depending on how you look at it. But when it tells a story, it goes, hey, listen, I have something to tell you. And man, oh man, does it have to tell you something. How do I interpret it? Let's see. When you go to a different place, to work, to school, like university or anything, you may have your life, the life you've previously knew, taken away completely. And then, when that life is taken away, you now become a servant, a robot. A robot that just obeys whatever it is asked to do. But, there's one thing you must remember, you had your life. It's always gonna come back to you. Your friends are gonna remember you. They still love you. And they remember you. They're gonna make you remember your name and who you are. So, basically, the people who took away your life, you're gonna want to go fight them, right? But turns out, those people, they have many people behind their backs. They have everything behind their backs. So, they're gonna fucking shoot you. They're gonna bring you down. So in the end, you could basically, the only thing that can save yourself is who you know in your life. The one that is going to be able to take away the mask you now wear so you can be human again, yourself again. And that's from RoboCop. I swear this is what the movie tells you. You may think I'm crazy and I'm just talking off the top of my head, but yeah, I am talking off the top of my head, but this is what this movie is about, regaining humanity. And no, it is not a movie that is about against corporations or something. No, because the people responsible for Murphy's death actually had good intentions, believe it or not. Despite the hard actions, the intentions were good. So basically, it tells a story about uncertainty. Yeah, uncertainty, because yeah, there's this guy, he does something wrong, but he doesn't want to be bad. There's this guy who's basically thinking he's good, even though he isn't. And I have to say, just see the movie. I'm not gonna spoil you anything anymore, so just see this movie. It's a fantastic masterpiece and worthy to be celebrated today, especially when its themes and messages are still relevant 30 years ago. Moving on to RoboCop 2. This one had a troubled production, okay? Orion, the production company, was so hasty. They wanted this movie right now. So in the end, the movie was rushed. And what you get is basically a lesser version of the first film. I mean, it knows what it wants to do, okay? It is self-aware. That's all I can say. This movie, it's like a parody of sequels and Hollywood in general. How do I know that? This scene.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you RoboCop 2.
You are under arrest. Stop or I'll shoot. Stop.
OCP is proud to present the future of urban pacification. RoboCop 2.
Yeah, I kind of forgot to talk about the story. Basically, there are many things going on. One, a drug lord named Kane, whose drug, called a nuke, is rampant in Detroit. RoboCop has to stop him. The police are striking because OCP are not giving in to their demands of better conditions. OCP wants to purchase Detroit, which is going bankrupt. And Detroit bankruptcy actually happened in 2013. Yikes. And then there's many things. Kane becomes this new robot project that OCP wants, and they call it RoboCop 2. Subtle, I know. And then many things happen, okay? If I try to sum up this story, we'll be here all day. Basically, it's kind of like watching the news, because when you watch the news, there are many things that you should or should not follow. And RoboCop 2 is kind of that. It has many things. It doesn't balance them too well, but in the end, it's still an okay movie. It's an okay movie, and I guess that's what it wanted to be. But there's one thing. If you know that what you do is not as good as it could have been, or if you don't like doing that, then why do you do it? That's basically the thing, because RoboCop 2, the characters are not as interesting, the music is not as epic, because the first movie had an absolutely amazing soundtrack, and this second movie's soundtrack is really underwhelming. Kane's gang has nothing on Clarence Boddicker's gang from the first movie. Yeah, I just said the name of a character from the first movie, but I swear, see the first movie. So in the end, RoboCop 2 is an interesting movie, but in the end, you're just gonna enjoy it if you just want some more RoboCop filler, pretty much. I mean, originally, Ed Neumayer and Michael Miner, the writers of RoboCop 1, had originally intended a completely different sequel called RoboCop Corporate Wars, where RoboCop would find himself in a futuristic Blade Runner type world. But that didn't happen, sadly. And if you want to read that first draft script, which is basically all we have left from that, I have a link in the description. Then, despite RoboCop 2's shortcomings, we got RoboCop 3. And what is RoboCop 3? If RoboCop 1 was a satire of action movies, and if RoboCop 2 was a parody of sequels in Hollywood, RoboCop 3 is a parody of itself. This movie is bad. I mean, yes, it is often seen in many top lists of worst sequels, of worst follow-ups, and I think it deserves it. But it wasn't the director's fault. The director is a talented man called Fred Decker, who did Night of the Creeps and Monster Squad, but in the end, all he could do was obey the producers who wanted to turn RoboCop into a family-friendly product, despite the first two movies being rated R. Then, all Fred Decker could do was basically making a movie that is just underwhelming, boring, underdeveloped. Basically, you see many ideas on screen that are just ruined because family-friendly product. And basically, all the characters, everything from development, story, philosophy, all of that is taken away in that third movie. This movie basically throws away what made RoboCop 1 so great, and in the end, it just does whatever this is. It's a goody-goody superhero film where basically the company is baddie, the big bad wolf, which is quite a shame because I know losing your home is something awful. I know that. But there's always gotta be nuances to any argument. No side is fully good or fully bad, okay? I hate these propaganda tools and movies that just go like, choose our side because our side is good and the other one's bad. Maleficent did that, and that movie sucked, okay? There's gotta be nuances all the time. There's always a good reason for things to happen. OCP was not a monster company in the first two movies. It was people in the company that were bad, not the whole company. Yes, because RoboCop's 3 story is basically OCP wanting to build Delta City again. And to do that, they expropriate people from their home. And there's a resistance group there. There's the rehabs from OCP who basically tried to fight them off. And RoboCop is there somehow just because Ann Lewis died. And that's in the trailer. It's not a spoiler. So in the end, RoboCop is there to help. Not really to help, but more to sit around. Because the movie is not about RoboCop at all. Yeah, I swear, RoboCop is a side character in his own movie. The main character is Nico, a Japanese computer whiz kid. Yeah, she's there. The other characters are there. That's the thing, there's no character development in this movie, and RoboCop is just there to make action sequences, suck at everything he's doing, basically just there to sell some toys. I swear, every time he appears, he looks like a toy commercial.
RoboCop, the ultimate weapon. 50% man, 50% machine, 100% cop. Ready to stop injustice. His machine gun arm will make Gruyere out of crooks. His flamethrower will make a worm introduction. And don't forget the missile launcher to spice up the battle. Bad guys will know what hit them when they encounter RoboCop, the ultimate crime-fighting weapon from Orion. Accessories sold separately.
You think I'm exaggerating? Just look at this scene. This scene is considered the most infamous scene in RoboCop history. It goes completely against what RoboCop was. RoboCop was always about a man inside a machine trying to keep his humanity. Now he's just there to be a toy, to do someone else's bidding. Oh, and there's a robot ninja in there? Just, it doesn't belong there. Just get that off, because I swear, RoboCop 3, it's like they just kept on doing whatever the frick they wanted just to get children in the seats, because Orion was going bankrupt to make some money. And I swear, by November 1993, when RoboCop 3 came out, it was too late. Because by that time, we got Jurassic Park, and 2 years before, we got Terminator 2. Okay? So, I'm sorry, RoboCop 3. It wasn't a director's fault. It was a bad idea from the start, making RoboCop a family product. After the failure that was RoboCop 3, you might think that Orion would just stop and let RoboCop rest, but no. They made, in 1994, a live-action TV series, which was okay to me. It's a guilty pleasure to me, even though objectively it's bad. There was a RoboCop Alpha Commando, a second cartoon, because there was a first cartoon that was released after the first movie, and that second cartoon is just a knockoff of Inspector Gadget. And in 2001 and 2003, we got RoboCop Prime Directives, a miniseries, and then in 2003, like I said, there was a RoboCop video game by Titus. Those two sucked. They're the worst things RoboCop has ever done. Even worse than RoboCop 3. And then, in 2005, talks began of a possible remake. And that remake finally happened in 2014, directed by Jose Padilla, a director of one of my all-time favorite movies, Elite Squad: The Enemy Within. So how is this movie? It's good. Yeah, I swear, it's a good movie. It's a step in the right direction. The story, even though it kind of repeats the original in a way, it's different enough, but it's still well done nonetheless. The characters, even though they're not as well developed, they still have a good function. What this movie is about Omnicorp, that's the new name of OCP, the company who owns the cops, who makes machines of law enforcement in many countries, and the US government doesn't want that. In this movie, the company, yeah, even though Murphy is injured, he's still a human. He's not completely dehumanized, he's not killed, and in the end, it's a whole process, like, what should we do? Is he still Alex Murphy, the man who has a family, who has friends? Or should we make him a robot to make sure he works well when he's put on the streets? Because he's the first experiment. You see, that's a great dilemma, and I love the fact that the movie focuses on that. But unfortunately, there's not much action. You don't see RoboCop in action as much. And when he does, those scenes are really abrupt. Which is kind of a shame. I mean, I could imagine if the movie was like rated R, because this one is PG-13, but that's not a problem, unlike RoboCop 3. RoboCop the remake is not dumbed down, it's just a bit underwhelming compared to the original, because like I said, it will need like 20 to 30 more minutes so we could get more RoboCop kicking ass. But in the end, we don't get that, which is a bit of a shame, because Jose Padilla is an incredibly raw director. He has a raw style, he is real, but in the end, it's a bit of a shame that he had trouble with the producers, so he couldn't really fully realize his vision. It's a bit of a shame, but in the end, to me, the movie, the remake, I really appreciate it. Not as much as the original, but definitely better than the sequels. Still. So in the end, what can I say about RoboCop? I have to say, the franchise overall is mainly okay. Yeah, because we only got one masterpiece, an okay sequel, a crap third movie, and a good remake, which unfortunately wasn't everyone's cup of tea. So what's next for the character? I don't know, really. I don't know. MGM owns the license, so... and nothing has been spoken. So... I don't know. So maybe RoboCop could go in the road like Planet of the Apes did. Having a reboot that is completely different, but in the end, becomes great on its own. Yeah, remember Planet of the Apes? Many people considered it dead after the 70s, and then there was a remake, which was not that good at all. And then there was a reboot series, which was completely different from the original series of Planet of the Apes, but was so great in its own right. So yeah, maybe that thing can happen to RoboCop. Maybe, but maybe that's wishful thinking, but still, hey, you gotta have hope. RoboCop, happy birthday. You have a great 30th year. And you know what? Maybe I'm gonna rewatch the original movie again, and even the remake. And I suggest you do. Toodles! Happy birthday, RoboCop! Wait, there's something I almost forgot to mention. Sorry. RoboCop 2 was written by Frank Miller. Yes, the Frank Miller who wrote the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. And it stars Peter Weller. Ironically, in the animated movie Batman The Dark Knight Returns, based on the graphic novel from Frank Miller, Batman is voiced by Peter Weller. Ironic, right?